Hello, amazing agents. Welcome to Agent Tech Mastery Podcast, where we explore cutting edge technology, systems, apps, and a mindset for a profitable and integrated real estate business. If you've been feeling stuck and stressed and anxious and confused and overwhelmed with systems, technology, and apps, then you've come to the right place. My name is Darcy LaRock, and my co-host is Terry Osty. I have been in information technology for about 30 years. I speak all over North America about systems for agents, and I was on TV for 3 seasons teaching tech tips. And Terry is an absolutely amazing agent for almost the last 20 years. Oh, and he's also my husband. This podcast covers all things about streamlining your operations, saving you time, and boosting your revenue, and so much more. I am so grateful for your presence here today. Now let's dive into the Agent Tech Mastery podcast. Okay, we are part 2 of house hazards. And it's going to be pretty exciting. We talked quite a bit last time about all the different hazards. And so we said we're going to kind of revisit it today and go into last time. If you guys didn't watch last time's podcast, it was about asbestos, vermiculite, mold, poly B, and Kitech. Did I say all that right, Terry?
Correct.
And then Terry's just going to cover today lead, foundation, chimney, and carbon monoxide. So you got the floor, Terry.
Okay. What was that first one again, Darce?
Lead.
Lead. Okay.
I remember you're not supposed to, when you were kids and you had lead pencils. Do kids have lead pencils anymore? You weren't supposed to poke people with it for some reason. Bad for your body, apparently.
Okay.
Heat, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm not a scientist or environmental specialist or anything like that.
No.
This is just some common sense stuff. As you know, lead is not good for us.
Well, now we know.
Now we know, right?
Otherwise, they wouldn't have put it in paint.
Yeah. I have lots of experience in the automotive painting industry, and there was lead used in automotive paints as well. And I was told by my peers in that industry that lead was used to create a better opacity with the paint. So when you spray a color like yellow or red or orange, it's usually quite transparent. You can see the substrate grinning through the color, right? So you want opacity. You want to be able to coat something with a coat of paint and not see what's underneath it, the substrate, right?
Okay.
So supposedly lead was added for opacity reasons. Now, there's probably a bunch of other reasons, but I didn't do any research prior to coming on camera today. But let's just assume that it was used for opacity purposes. So what happens with lead is that it goes into our body and causes us all kinds of problems. And lead was used in a lot of different coating systems back in the day. Okay.
So no longer used now in paint and things.
As far as I know, I don't think anything's ever, really real for real unless you actually understand what's happening in manufacturing in other countries and the controls that they have for that we're actually importing into our country. So do your homework, do your research.
Is there lead meters, Terry?
No, as far as I know, you have to take a sample and get it tested at a lab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. And you can't just, no, I won't say something, but it's, I better not. But yeah, I highly recommend if you suspect that any of the products or coatings have lead in them, again, please align yourself with the specialists who do nothing but look at hazardous materials in homes. Have them take a sample, send it to the lab, get it tested.
And were we saying, again, this is like older homes?
Typically older homes.
Typically, like a new home shouldn't have lead paint?
Yeah, shouldn't. Who knows, right?
Yeah, okay.
Who knows?
Okay, but the older homes probably do. And you can't just paint over it, I'm guessing.
Possibly.
Oh, okay, so then in this case you might. So it's not that you have to remove it necessarily.
I would talk to the experts for sure and get their recommendations. I don't want to make any recommendations.
Okay. Fair enough.
My license doesn't allow me to do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you suspect, get it tested, bring the experts in, and
Okay.
and Google or search on the web the hazards of ingesting lead as human beings.
Yeah, not good. Okay.
Not good.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then the other thing that we mentioned last time, but we didn't really get into, is foundation problems, the hazards of foundations.
Yeah.
I always remember this one time that I went with you to a property, and it was you could roll a marble from one end to the other. It was so sloped.
Yeah, the marble test, right?
Yeah. I don't know if that's a real thing. Is that a
It is
real
a real
thing?
thing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Inspectors will bring a
Just
marble.
remember, it felt like a fun house, like a bad fun house. But it's very important to have proper foundation and a proper company doing the foundation. And so, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so it's not really hazardous material
No.
but so you can imagine, remember I used the word substrate. So substrate is the product that's below, right?
Yeah.
So with foundations, the substrate is the earth, whatever it's sitting on.
Right.
So let's say you have some really soft substrate. Let's say if it's a peat bog, because in Vancouver, in British Columbia,
Uh-huh.
Vancouver has a number of peat bogs, and peat bogs are these organic growing materials that are really soft.
Oh, which feels good when you're hiking.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you remember, did you ever come to the Richmond Nature Park?
Yeah, where it was gushy,
That's
squishy.
spongy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
can't use. And people were building on top of peat bog, so you can imagine having a spongy support on your home, right? So today they don't do that. They build a little bit differently. They drill down to a solid substrate, like a piece of granite or something. But it's really, really important that the engineers and everybody who's building these homes understand the substrate. They usually have to bring in experts, right?
Right.
But it doesn't always happen. And some of the older homes were built on soft substrates. Um, so what happens is the foundation is only good as the substrate below it.
Right.
If the substrate moves around, the foundation moves around, and whatever's built on that foundation moves around, right? And you can see in some of the 100-year-old plus homes in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver,
Yeah.
for example, Queensborough, Main and 16th, there's a bunch of areas where Trout Lake, where these peat bogs are, and the houses have shifted around. I've seen staircases, like concrete staircases, sitting crooked, cracked foundations. That sloped floor that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So that is hazardous because your house could collapse.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to move around. Yeah.
Could it collapse?
Um, Not instantaneously, unless it's like on the edge of a cliff or something where the cliff
Oh,
lets.
so that's important too. And well, like landslides too, right? What if when people's homes are built?
It's happened in California, from what I read in the news or see in the news.
Yeah. And would
Hillsides.
that be improper engineering, do you think, or would that be
Mm,
foundation or just
it's
nature?
it's pretty complex. It's like if you are building on a hillside or a cliff, you want to make sure that the engineers have taken everything into account. There are some things that you can't take into account, say acts of God or weather systems or what have you. Let's say it does erode the cliff and you didn't anticipate that that was going to happen. So
But I mean,
building, go ahead.
don't they make, like, I know it's different in every area, but like for um, Vancouver, they build the new condos to be earthquake proof. They didn't do that decades ago, did they?
Yeah, the seismic requirements have changed over time for
Right.
sure. I don't think anything's ever anything earthquake.
No, right. That was a
But
bad that was a bad word because because we went through it in Vancouver once, is that you want the building to sway,
you need some flexibility.
which is
And
scary when you're in the building, which I was, and you weren't home.
yeah,
Um, because the building was swaying for sure. And I called Terry in a panic. He's like, "Yeah, that's what it's supposed to do." Like, okay, it's not swaying and then gonna collapse. But so I guess with different areas, depending on where they are, if you're tornadoes, there's I guess the what are they called? The underneath where they go and escape the tornado?
oh, a bunker or something.
A bunker or something that they can live and food, and we don't have that in our area, but
Mhm.
I guess when you're building in certain areas that you're prone to tornadoes and floods, and you have to build the foundation appropriately, whether it's on stilts,
Yeah, it could be stilts. Yeah, we've seen those before, right? Yeah,
yeah, or whatever. But it is important to understand that when you're looking at buying a home or selling your home.
yeah. We have a thing, and this is probably for most areas. We have a thing called a floodplain.
Yeah.
So areas near bodies of water, whether it's a river, a lake, or ocean, um, the different cities, municipalities actually have a map showing where the floodplains are, and then floodplains are areas of potential flooding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rises or a lake rises or what have you. So whenever you are, and I've seen this happen where people have built a house close to a river, and
Yep.
it may have been done without permits,
Yep.
without proper investigating and due diligence, and then the river floods, and then their house gets washed away, or they lose a chunk of their yard. So that can happen as well. So you have to be careful and understand what you're doing and where you're building.
And that wouldn't be covered.
Probably not, especially if it was done without permits and maybe
Yeah.
have flood insurance. Like I
Yeah.
can imagine many insurers are going to say, "Yeah, but happy to insure your home in the floodplain."
Right.
Right?
Right. So it's very important to understand that. And I know just personal examples I've seen is remember when I can't remember. It must have been a big windstorm. I don't really remember what all the docks here got wiped away. And docks are expensive or
That's
can be
right.
expensive.
Yeah.
And so I guess they probably built them differently after that incident, my guess is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We had yeah, that one time, that one year, the water rose and it
The
was
water rose, and then wasn't there like high winds or something? Everybody lost their docks, or almost everybody lost or got their docks damaged in some way, shape, or form.
on a lake. We're talking about a lake.
A lake, yeah, not on an ocean, but it would be similar anywhere else. It's like you
But,
got to make sure that because stuff happens,
yep,
we don't,
absolutely.
we can't predict, whether lakes or oceans rise and fall. Some things we can predict,
Yeah,
um, but obviously weather is so unpredictable, and so we have to make basically in a foundation of a house, it has to be done properly
correct. With
to
professionals.
by
For sure.
professionals who know what they're doing, and not your kid or your somebody else that doesn't know what they're doing. It's so important.
So I know some houses that I've seen in the Lower Mainland that were foundations were built without permits, and then
Yeah,
additions done on top of that. So
yeah,
it does happen. So as you know, as an agent, you want to do your due diligence. You want to ask all the questions. You want to go to the city hall where the permits are administered and making sure that if there was an addition done, was it done with a permit? That's important to do that due diligence so you
what
understand.
happens if they did a bunch of stuff and then they went to go sell their house, but nothing was permitted?
So in British Columbia, we have to declare that. It's called a material latent defect where we are. So you have to declare that and tell people that this is what's happened. So, and a lot of homes get bought and sold,
Yeah.
have work done without permits. You just have to understand, number one, you have to declare it. Number two, you have to understand what the risks are to your clients, whether you're on the sell side or the buy side, especially on the buy side, because now I know here, let's say if there was an addition, a couple of quick risks. Let's say there was electrical work done without permits and the electrical work causes a fire. Guess what
Oh,
the insurance company is probably going to do? Probably not
not pay out.
pay out.
Yeah.
What if the city finally comes around and says, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I see that there's a 1,000 square foot addition that never had a permit, and we want you to take it down."
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Like, so you guys really important. This is really important stuff to know about as a homeowner to pull the proper permits.
Yeah.
And I remember a story of a friend of ours who built a laneway home in Vancouver,
Yeah.
and you'll remember it better than I do, but something about when the inspector finally came, that the house was, even though they approved plans, which again makes no sense to me, but cities are cities,
Yeah.
they approved the plans. It was built on what the plans said. And then when they came to inspect it, to do the final inspection, it was 2 inches or 4 inches too
Four
high
inches.
or
Yeah.
something.
So yeah, the top of the roof was 4 inches too high. That was allowable for the zoning for that
But they
particular.
approved it.
They approved the drawings, and I guess on the drawings there's some fine print that says they reserve the right to.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So they can lower the roof by 4 inches.
Got the lower the trusses, yeah, by 4 inches. And also while the inspector was there, so we have the main home and then we have the laneway home, which they're building with permits. Okay.
Yeah.
So the inspector went into the house and noticed. They said, "Oh my gosh, look at this!
Mm,
We have an illegal rental suite down here."
that's right. I remember that.
So they made the sellers, and unfortunately the sellers weren't using it as a revenue generator or anything like that. It
Yeah,
was,
fortunately.
and so the city said we need to decommission that suite because it's unauthorized as for the city's governance.
Now, didn't they have to pull out the kitchen or something to
They had
prove
to
it
take
wasn't
the
a?
stove hood out, like the ventilation fan, and then
Yeah,
use the power supply.
yeah. So things you just don't know until you into this podcast.
Yeah. You can have an in-law suite, which is, you might have a hot plate and a fridge
Yeah,
upstairs here in British Columbia. But once you put a full-on stove and ventilation in, that tips that into an unauthorized suite.
got it, got it.
And
Okay, well
plus,
that was interesting. Always ask questions too, guys. The other one that I had on here was you mentioned a chimneys last time.
all right, chimneys. So whenever this is in British Columbia again, whenever you have a wood burning appliance, whether it's a stove, fireplace, anything that burns wood, we throw wood into, whether it's pellets or logs or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's wood, in order for it to be operating safely, you need to get what's called a WETT inspection and get it WETT certified. And WETT is WETT, which is Wood Energy Transfer Technology. So in British Columbia, you have to go to school and learn and get licensed to be a WETT inspector. So WETT inspectors are the only people here that can actually certify and evaluate a wood burning appliance.
Can I jump in here for a minute?
Sure.
When you're getting a wet inspector, is this you should be doing this annually, or is it only when you're buying or selling, or?
I'm not sure. Probably annually, I would think, because what happens is most insurers, like for home insurance, want a current WETT certification. Like they want the paper that says an inspector came and said that this is operating properly and it's not
Okay,
super dangerous.
okay.
Because they want to know, right? Because dealing with
And
fire.
if I remember correctly, somebody else we knew, which I can't remember now who it was, didn't they have to move?
Yeah, it was the home. It wasn't a home, it was a recreational property. And they needed to put non-combustible
Oh,
materials around
yeah,
it.
yeah, because it was a fireplace.
Yeah, it was an old wood
Right.
stove,
Yeah,
and it was in a recreational property. And
yeah,
they just became the new owners, and they were going to get a mortgage on it,
and they couldn't.
insurance, and they needed to get this WETT certification.
That's right.
So the WETT
Okay.
inspector came and said, "Hey, this is not to code or not up to whatever, however they're measuring that." And they said, "You need to put in this non-combustible materials around it and upgrade this, that, and the other." Right?
And I guess once you move in, you don't have to do it annually, but you probably should do it if you've never got it done before, right? To make sure if you're in an older home that it's safe for your family.
Yeah, for sure. If you are selling a home in British Columbia, we have a thing called the property disclosure statement, which is a written document. One of the questions is, has this wood burning appliance been WETT certified?
Okay, and if you say no, then again, it might be an insurance issue.
Yeah, and it's a safety issue. As a homeowner, if you have any wood burning appliances, you need to make sure that's early. I can tell you, my firefighting days put out lots of chimney fires because things aren't being.
Oh, if
Sure.
anyone didn't know this, Terry knows a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff because he was in construction. He also was a firefighter, and so that's a good one. So is that why would a chimney? And I'm going to ask probably silly questions that many people know, but I don't know.
Mhm.
How can a chimney catch on fire? Is it because they don't clean them? You should be
There's
cleaning.
a buildup on the inside of it, which catches on fire over time.
So this is for a wood burning,
Yeah, anything wood burning.
wood
A
burning
fireplace specifically, we'll just key on that. But yeah, you got to build up on the inside,
from what?
burning the wood products.
Yeah, okay, so it's building up inside the chimney. And then
Eventually catches on fire because
somebody doesn't do annual cleaning of their chimney.
yeah. So you will clean it, get a professional in there to come and clean it every year. I
Yeah.
know. I had fireplaces when I was a kid. We never got them cleaned. At a fire. Like I said, I put lots of fires out. They're easy to put out once you get there with all the proper equipment.
If
But
you get there in time, it's okay.
yeah, it's pretty well. The chimney column itself is made out of brick or some non-combustible material, so
Right.
chimney doesn't normally catch on fire like per se, but it's the coating, it's the residue that builds up on the inside that catches on fire. Now, not to say that it's not a hazard because it could lead to your house catching on fire in the right conditions.
Okay.
Um, but it's pretty straightforward to put out. But we had a fireplace in one of the condos we had in Vancouver, and the Strata did an annual cleaning as
Oh
part
yeah,
of.
that's HOA for our American friends. HOA is strata here.
So,
Um,
so yeah, they did an annual cleaning of.
to keep everyone
Oh
safe.
yeah, sure, yeah, they
Yeah,
don't
for sure. Included in your strata fees.
correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. And well, as a fireman, when you guys put out that fire, do they get billed for because you wouldn't be there if they actually
No, I don't think they ever need anybody invoiced for that. We did
did?
invoice for false alarms,
Huh,
but no, I think that as far as I know, we didn't send an invoice out.
huh. I'm thinking that they should change that policy.
Maybe.
Right? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's guys' time because
Yeah.
they didn't do an annual check.
Yeah.
Okay, so awesome on the chimneys. I think have we covered that?
I think we're good. Yep.
Okay, and then the last thing we were going to talk about for part two was carbon monoxide, which is a killer.
Correct. So carbon monoxide, if you don't know, is a colorless, odorless gas, and it's a product of fossil fuel combustion. So whenever you're burning propane, natural gas, any fossil fuel-based product, you get this carbon monoxide gas coming off of it. Unfortunately, you can't smell it or taste it.
And that's why in all new homes, is a requirement, I would think.
Oh yeah, for sure. You need a detector.
So we have detectors now. But before, you probably don't know what year, but before that, we didn't, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure the history of the detection equipment, but didn't they use canaries or something like that?
They sent them down the mines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
if the bird, because the birds supposedly had a high metabolism, higher than humans, and it would, if the bird died, that means get the heck out of there.
Okay, so if everybody,
That's
if
what I know of the story.
everybody has to go buy a bird if you don't want to get a carbon monoxide detector.
Yeah.
Okay, but you can get a manual, like you can just go to
Yeah.
Best Buy,
Any store will have them.
buy ones that you just put in your house.
Yep. Follow the manufacturer's recommendations on the location of them
Yeah.
for sure.
But would you think that everybody should have a carbon monoxide detector?
Oh yeah, if you're in a home that's burning natural gas, for example, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Any kind of
fossil fuel.
any kind of fossil fuel. So that would be what? Natural
That's
gas.
propane,
Okay.
gasoline.
Propane
You're
too.
going to be burning gas in
Okay.
the house typically. But you
Okay.
also you have to consider too, in British Columbia, you have a house and you have an attached garage,
Yeah.
and there's a door in between your garage and your home where you live.
Yeah.
Guess what's in the garage?
I don't know.
Fossil fuel burning car.
Oh, a car if you have gas cars. Yeah.
So if you're sitting in the garage running your engine, you're accumulating carbon monoxide in your garage.
Right.
And sadly, what people do is, yeah, right.
Okay, so that's a good analogy. So it's a very similar thing that if you have a leak in your house,
Mm-hmm.
that you're not going to know, you just pass out and eventually die.
Yeah, because there was a recent one. I think it was on the island somewhere where an elderly couple had a carbon monoxide leak, and
Yeah.
they passed away overnight. They just didn't wake up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Horrible. And it's such a quick fix. Like that you just and it wasn't, I don't because we bought one not for our current place we just built, so it's all built in, so we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it. But I don't remember it being expensive, the
Yeah.
detector, $20,
It's 75 bucks, whatever.
something like that.
Yeah, plug it in.
You need to do that. And and then you can have an app and it'll detect when there's a problem. Now, I don't know how it works even with newish homes when it's built in. Do they annually test them? Like, how it would be horrible if it's not working.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that until just
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Usually in the new homes, the carbon monoxide detector is built into the smoke detector.
Oh, okay.
They're all in one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, and I guess too, you can probably buy a multi-use, like if you change your fire detector, it would be CO2?
I think it's CO. Yeah.
Do I
CO.
remember my science?
CO2 is carbon dioxide.
CO, so it's CO?
CO. Yeah.
Okay,
Carbon
CO.
monoxide.
There you go. There's your science lesson for today. Okay, so any other hazardous stuff that you can think of? Like there is a lot of hazardous stuff everywhere, but
Yeah. Did we talk about radon last time?
we didn't. I didn't write that down, but that doesn't mean we didn't talk. Let's talk about it because radon's we did talk a little bit about it, but let's talk about it because I think many people don't understand radon.
Yeah. So radon is another gas has no smell or taste.
Yeah.
It exists naturally in this world. So if you go and research it, it's uranium that exists in the ground, and as it oxidizes or decomposes, it gives off this gas called radon gas. So eventually, over time, it usually causes cancer and death in humans. But
And can they, I guess they can, you're not a doctor, but they can tell it's from radon.
I don't know, actually.
But we know it's bad for you.
Yes, for sure.
And so the same thing, you can have radon detectors in certain areas because I don't think it's everywhere, is it?
Well, if you for our province in Canada, there's actually a map that's on the internet from the government that shows you the concentration levels all over the whole province.
Right. And certain areas are worse.
Yeah, there's more area like in our province. There's areas
Yeah.
of higher concentration
Yeah.
than others for sure, and then that goes for all of North America.
Okay.
Um,
I read, so again, same thing, get a detector. If you don't have one, go buy detectors for your home. And I also read, it was interesting because I was just reading about this to go back to the carbon monoxide, is that somebody was traveling somewhere and they died in some Airbnb they rented, or I don't know if it's Airbnb, some place they rented because of carbon monoxide. So they were saying that everyone should travel with a travel carbon monoxide. That's when I asked you about that a couple months ago, and I don't know, like if it's worth doing that or not, but
maybe, yeah.
just food for thought because you don't know what other people have done when I'm guessing hotels are fine, but most other places where, and I think with Airbnb and VRBO, they actually, because I was looking at it after that it'll say radon detector, no, maybe not radon, but carbon monoxide detector. It'll actually is a check that they have one in the home or not. So just food for thought. If you travel and use those services, just check that out as well.
Yeah, you would hope that the host would be in compliance with all the local bylaws and
That's funny, Terry.
you
I
make no
say that
mistake.
because we
Yeah,
know what people are like. They will do whatever.
yeah.
So
That's
yeah, you
funny.
want to hope that they are, following the rules and have everything in place, but you don't want to be that person that books that place and,
Yeah, for sure. You're responsible for your own safety.
Yeah.
Speaking of hazards, we have a company that comes here twice a year to spray for bugs because we have some pest problems here. And speaking of hotels, she told us some horrific stories about
Oh,
bugs in hotels, and they
well, do we want to get into that?
not
Okay, first
really,
time to get into,
but
we actually should now that you brought it up, but
yeah,
when he's saying we have pest problems, we're right in a mountain. We're in a brand new build, and we got
stink bugs,
our typical, what are they
spiders,
called?
stink bugs, black widow.
Stink bugs, and we're right at, like, if I pointed my camera, you can see the forest is right there. So we just have maintenance that we have to, and inside we really don't see very many bugs. But yes, they did tell us about that. I had a hard time going to hotels and anywhere after that for a while. I have to get it out of my mind. You go ahead and tell everyone what.
Well, it's something about, well, there's bed bugs, of course, that are pretty common. And then the headboards are supposedly a really nice place, like cloth headboards are a really nice place for bugs to hang out in. They actually say because they're bug experts and they have all the tools and chemicals, you bring a little kit with them to try and when they go to hotels to exterminate their room a little bit.
I wouldn't do it. I don't know. I'm best not to know some of these things. But
Yeah.
she said the thing that stuck in my mind about that is that she said that it's expensive to get extermination done. So let's say they call you in because this one room has bed bug infestation. It is not just that one room ever.
No.
And she said generally they won't spray. They always recommend, I can't remember now exactly, so don't quote me on this, everybody, but something like you got to spray the floor above and below as well as the rooms. I can't quite remember everything. And she said most places won't do it because it's too expensive. So they just exterminate the one room and possibly one beside it, but they don't do what they should do because of the cost, which is scary.
There's
a note on bed bugs.
Oh, for sure. Well, one more comment about bed bugs. In Vancouver, I don't know if the site is still up or not, but there's a thing called the Bed Bug Registry where if you lived in a building, because the downtown Vancouver has over 300 residential buildings, right? And you can report a bed bug infestation in a certain building. So there's a database of known buildings who had bed bug infestations. And like you say, it's not isolated to one room. These walls, they're not bed bug barriers, right? They get through the other rooms.
Well, and they also have that for restaurants when the restaurant
health authority.
There's a site that says this restaurant has this many flags or infractions or whatever. So, I don't know, you guys. Sometimes it's best not to know. Just go eat and sleep. Don't worry about it. But there are tools out there in every area that you can go and search for things if you want. Okay.
Yeah. We had speaking of restaurants here, quick story. We went for dinner downtown Vancouver, and this restaurant had one of those heaters hanging from the corner on the ceiling. You know, it's a big box and it blows, it's burning gas or whatever, and it's blowing. I guess they hadn't cleaned it for such a long time. There's such a buildup of things on the fin, and it blew this chunk of black stuff and landed on our dinner table from the heater. It was like so disgusting.
Okay, so restaurants, clean your fans and your heaters, please.
And all that.
Yeah, it's kind of gross sometimes. Oh, sorry, Terry.
All that plastic decorative flowers and stuff that you see.
Oh, yes, lovely. And it is gross when you look up and you see, you know, a couple of years worth of dust on the. I should look at mine. Is it okay?
We actually were at a restaurant a few days ago. Remember, the sunshine was beaming through the window, and there's so much dust in there. It was crazy. Yeah.
It was gross. We won't name it. It was pretty gross. We'd been in there numerous times, and just happened to be there one day when the sun was beaming down, and everything was. It looked like they hadn't dusted in a long time. Which, okay. I think that's good. We will be here for the next podcast. Let me just pull up my new outro and we are good to go. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Agent Tech Mastery Podcast. If this episode inspired you, please leave a review and also share this podcast. And I'd love to chat with you. Please feel free to DM me on most social channels or tag me. Let's chat. If you are feeling stuck with your real estate business, wasting so much time entering data using free email addresses or worse, a brokerage one, yikes, or you're using a CRM, well, you know, you're not really using a CRM, or worse, you're using a brokerage CRM. If you can't find anything due to disjointed systems, why not book a complimentary real estate tech and systems audit? You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Go to go.agenttechmastery.com/pod. Again, that is go.agenttechmastery.com/pod. agenttechmastery.com/pod. And tune in to watch our podcast on any major podcast app by searching Agent Tech Mastery. See you on our next episode.